Okay, hello everyone. How you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. Starting a few minutes late today. I had some technical difficulties there. Sorry about that. So today we are going to be talking about a couple of things, in particular marijuana and cartoons, two of my most favorite subjects. Because I watch a lot of cartoons and formerly used to smoke a lot of marijuana, not so much anymore. But anyway, before we get into that, everybody please like and subscribe. Gotta get into the habit of saying that early in the stream so that people actually do it. And also, let's take a look at what we're working on. So we're getting pretty close with our hideous demon warrior guy. Doesn't look half bad, don't you think? I think I might clean some of this. I might simplify a little bit of this in the legs here. Because I'm thinking we might actually color this too. I mean, I don't know. I think we should color it. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling later on if I still want to color it. So, weed and cartoons. Well, first, if you guys haven't heard, Dark Brandon is now Dank Brandon. Right? So what's going on with that? Well, President Biden has decided to actually give the voters, young voters, something that they actually really want, and has started the process of giving pardons to people with low-level possession charges, federal possession charges for marijuana, which is pretty big. And but it doesn't just stop there. He also says that they're going to begin the process of changing marijuana so that it will no longer be a Schedule 1 drug. Right. What does that mean? Well, it's a Schedule 1 drug according to the FDA, or is it the FDA or is it the DEA? Anyway, I think it's the DEA, excuse me, is a drug that has no medicinal properties, no medicinal uses, right? And is considered the worst of the worst, right? So all of the laws out there in different states that have legalized marijuana for medicinal use, which is actually a pretty large portion of the country right now has done that. Something actually I have a map. I have a map of it, legal weed map right here, and I can count how many. So just you can see here, let me turn on my window. These are the states that have legalized marijuana, right? According to the American Non-Smokers' Rights Foundation. Right, whatever that is. But as of October of this year, so this is very current. And you can see that those that are green have recreational and medical use. So the dark green. And you can basically see pretty much all of the West, California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Colorado. And then some in the Northeast up here. And then those with medical use only is actually the majority of the country now. So if you look at the United States, the majority of the country now has at least medical use legalized, right? Those that are completely white have neither recreational or medical use legalized. Which should be of no surprise to anyone if you look at this map. Those states that have neither legalized are the reddest of the red states. Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Kansas, Georgia. Although Georgia is slowly turning purple. Georgia went to Biden and it has 2 Democratic senators as of now. So maybe not so much Georgia anymore. Maybe we might be seeing some changes in Georgia. But anyway, you can kind of see how, this map, it's exactly where you think it wouldn't be legal is where it's not legal. Right? That being the South, the deep South, and it just I just love pointing that out every opportunity that I can, showing how, the South is always, it's wherever, anything that like fucks people up, anything that takes away people's rights, any type of law like that, you'll always find that in the South. Marijuana is not legal. Trans kids can't use the bathroom that they want to. Trans girls can't, participate in sports. Stuff like that. It's always the Deep South where the most repressive laws exist, right? But I did want to point this out. So this is, compare this though to 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. Compare this map to, what's 15 years ago now? 2007, right? This map would be completely white. Right? When did the first medical marijuana get legalized? It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, right? What, a decade or so? So a lot can change in a small amount of time. 10 years is not that much time in the grand scheme of things, and you can see the way it's going. Eventually, it will be nationwide. And let's go ahead and turn this off for now. And removing it as a Schedule 1 drug definitely puts us in a much better position for that to happen, right? Because a lot of the state laws that we have don't say marijuana specifically. Like a lot of the state laws that say, you get X amount of time for possession or for sale, or if you get caught with intent to sale, shit like that. A lot of those do not specifically say marijuana. A lot of them will say any federal Schedule 1 drug will get this much time. So it's like, right. Also keep in mind things like fentanyl are not Schedule 1 drugs either. So it's like, according to the federal government, marijuana is worse than fentanyl. Right? So, this is something that's been a long time coming, right? And there's lots of reasons why crackdown on marijuana was so hard, not the least of which having to do with racism. So, and this is definitely a true thing, the roots of the drug war lie in racism. Basically up until, the 1930s, drugs were not, drugs of any kind were not illegal at all. And as a matter of fact, back in the 19th century, like 1880s, 1890s, and stuff, taking things like cocaine, for example, were pastimes of the upper class, right? That's definitely a thing in, like, say, Victorian England and stuff like that. And so cocaine use was widespread, for example, in Victorian era England, right? Around that time. And it was like cocaine use and heroin, not heroin, like opiates, opium, stuff like that. Like specifically opium. That was like, although opium was seen as a little bit more of a low class kind of drug, but stuff like that was 100% legal. I mean, read Sherlock Holmes. If you ever read Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes has a very healthy coke habit, right? He does. He's fucking snorting, and it was like he's sort of in the book. It's sort of treated like that's like an aid that he uses when he's solving a case, right? This is no bullshit. So, and it wasn't until the 1930s or so that you started to see some restrictions on some of these things. And specifically for marijuana, it was because of immigrants from Mexico, right? And before this happened, they called marijuana cannabis in the United States. That was the name, cannabis, right? So marijuana, specifically spelled with an H, marijuana, like that, is the Spanish name for it, right? And it was specifically when immigrants from Mexico came and started using it for recreational use that restrictions started getting put on it back in the 1930s, right? And it was, the reason why is because of racism, is because, number one, There, because Mexicans used it, right? So that was a big thing, and there was a lot of propaganda that Mexican men were luring away white women with marijuana, right? And it was the same kind of like racist stereotyping that you saw with opium previously. The reason why like opium dens, there was a lot of like propaganda that Asian men were luring away white women and controlling them with opium addiction, right? And that was one of the reasons like why opium was like outlawed and stuff, right? And it was the same kind of thing. It was, Latin Mexican lovers are gonna come steal your wife, steal your girlfriend with the devil's lettuce, right? I wish I was making this up, but I wasn't. I'm not. This is true. And it became even more so in the 1940s and 50s when black musicians started, like jazz artists and stuff like that. It became, smoking reefer, became a popular thing in the African American community, right? With like musicians and stuff. And that just made it even worse. That just made them clamp down on marijuana even more. And because back in the 30s, it wasn't even like a misdemeanor to have it. Like they started putting restrictions on it, saying, oh, you have to get it, you have to, I think there was a stamp act or something like that. Like you had to have like some kind of federal stamp in order to possess it. And then they just wouldn't give out the stamps. And then if you didn't follow this regulation, you got a fine or something. And it went from that to that's when it became like a Schedule 1, that, and then up until the 1960s it became a Schedule 1 drug because of racist propaganda, because now black people are using it and they're going to steal all the white women, right? So it becomes a Schedule 1 drug so that they can clamp down on it. And that became, right in the 60s and early 70s, part of that hysteria against hippie counterculture. Marijuana was seen as sort of like the big thing that all the hippies did. And so they started passing really draconian laws against it, in order to clamp down on it super hard, right? And that went all the way up into the 1980s and the war on drugs and all that. And in the meantime, the thing is that through all of this, there's other hardcore drugs out there, things like cocaine, for example, cocaine and heroin and, all the other, pharmaceuticals that get, misused and that kind of thing, right? All the way up until the 80s with the crack epidemic. And in the meantime, marijuana is like the least harmful of any of these and actually has some legit medical uses, but the reason why it was clamped down so hard was because of racism and basically reaction against the counterculture, right? And while all this shit is happening, marijuana use just keeps going up and up and up. And it got really popular in the 1990s. I mean, everybody smoked weed, right? But marijuana culture wasn't really mainstreamed until the 1990s, right? And this is when you started to see things like in popular culture, you started to see things like, say, rap music where they would talk about it, or, where they would openly smoke it, right? People like Snoop Dogg, shit like that, Kevin Smith, right? That kind of thing, like openly, people were not ashamed to say they did it. You know what I mean? Like, in fact, it became a thing like, yeah, I smoke weed. It's great. Everybody should do it. You know what I mean? Like it sort of became part of the popular culture, and it became acceptable. And it was one of those things that's like, yeah, it's illegal, but it shouldn't be. And then celebrities started saying they did it. You know what I mean? And that's when it really started to take off. And, now we're at where we're at. Right? Like it's marijuana use has become like not just mainstreamed now. It's become almost like passé at this point. right? Like, obviously, and it's become one of those things that where if you're against it, you're seen as like, you're the reactionary now. You know what I mean? You're the radical if you want to outlaw marijuana, right? It's sort of like outlawing marijuana is just as like ridiculous as trying to outlaw beer at this point, which is good. That's how it should be, and that's how it should have been all of this time. You know what I mean? Let's see, Mr. Natneck, thanks for joining again. Opium Wars, yes, that was definitely a thing. I mean, that kind of predated all of the drug wars, but opium wars were like the purposely import, like where the British would basically import opium into China in order to kind of like weaken their opposition, and that was definitely a thing. Because, I mean, unlike, the thing is, something like opium is highly addictive. Marijuana is not addictive, right? Not in a physical sense. You may have, like, any sort of marijuana addiction you would get would be more psychological, so you can't really, it's not really the same. It's not like you can import marijuana and then see a direct correlation of addicts running around. It doesn't really work like that. And for most people, marijuana is not a gateway drug, Now, I'm not going to say automatically that it's not, because I'm sure there have been people who smoked marijuana and then moved on to other drugs. I'm sure that's happened in the history of the world, right? I will say, though, that is really mostly a misconception. Most people who smoke marijuana do not do other drugs, they don't graduate into like doing things like heroin or cocaine or fentanyl or whatever, crack shit like that. Most of the, like, there's sort of like different tiers of drug use, right? And there's people that, there's one sort of culture where it's all, there'll be weed and shrooms and LSD. That's one side. And that's sort of like the party people that like, party and go to like, do it for music and shit like that, like Deadheads, stuff like that. And then you get some people that take drugs for spiritual uses, which I always thought was bullshit, but they're hippies, right? Right? You get that side. And then there's like sort of another side where you move on to higher, weirder, and more dangerous stuff, like, cocaine and smack and that kind of thing. And it's sort of like those two worlds, for the most part, are not really connected per se. And I'm not gonna say that there aren't people that start out with one and then move on to others, because there are, but those are people that have addictive personalities anyway, and they would have eventually, you know what I mean? Like, what I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's not like the notion that it's like a marijuana is a gateway drug, that, that's a fallacy. That's a slippery slope kind of thing, and I don't really believe that's much of a problem, although it may be a thing that's happened before with certain people, I don't know. But for the most part, I think most people choose one or the other. Most people who like to smoke weed do not want to do all of this other crap, right? Especially since things like cocaine and crack and shit like that has like a very bad reputation, right? And everybody kind of knows what those things are all about. And you turn into an addict, Crotakill, shit like that. You ever seen Crotakill? Crotakill is like this like weird fucking like gasoline derivative that people shoot up and it makes their fucking skin fall off. Like, you know what I mean? Like kids are not stupid, you know what I mean? Like, people are not it's not like, oh, I need a bigger high, I'm gonna go try this fucking face melting shit. Like, like normal ordinary weed is not doing it for me anymore. I'm gonna graduate straight into fucking like melting my flesh off. Like, that's not a thing. That doesn't really happen very much. But anyway, getting back to Dank Brandon here. So I think it'd probably be better if I just show the video. So let me go ahead and open this up.
As I said,
I got a YouTube video here. This is really not that long. It's only about 1 minute and 36 seconds. And I'll put this down in the chat for any of you guys who have not actually seen the president announce this. Let's just make that bigger. Let me come over here, turn on my window, and let me just make this a little smaller so we don't get kicked by YouTube. Plus that way you can still see me drawing. Okay, move that over a little bit. But yeah, let's listen to Dank Brandon and what he has to say.
As I said when I ran for president, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana. It's already legal in many states, and criminal records for marijuana possession have led to needless barriers to employment, to housing, to educational opportunities. And that's before you address the racial disparities around who suffers the consequences. While white and black and brown people use marijuana at similar rates, black and brown people are arrested, prosecuted, and convicted at disproportionately higher rates. So today...
That's actually 100% true, what he just said right there. And that just kind of shows the racial component of the drug war is still alive and well, you know. Lots of police unions, for example, support criminalizing drugs and keeping them criminalized, right? Why is that? Because, you know, if we don't arrest these people for these offenses, then we won't have people to put in prisons, and then the private prison industry will suffer. So it's all kind of, you know, there's lots of different angles to go about this. You know, there's the oppressing the minorities angle. There's the private prisons need to make money angle. There's the government wants to be able to control people angle. There's the, you know, throw all of the minorities in prison angle, right? There's lots of different, you know, there's lots of different ways that the drug war really is detrimental to our society and benefits not just the status quo, but a very small segment of the status quo, right? Getting rid of all of this, it's like, you know, will make our society much more equitable in many, many ways. And so that's why I think this is like, and that, you know, that really can't be understated. I think the racial component to all of this really cannot be understated, because exactly what he said is, you know, the thing about it is that if you look at people who self-report that they smoke marijuana, for example, it's actually more white people. Something like, it's around 52% of white people say they smoke marijuana. And if you look at African Americans, it's around 46%. Right. Yet, black people and Latinos go to prison for it, get caught, go to jail far more than white people do. Yet, more white people smoke marijuana, like, than black or Latino people. How does that shit make sense? You know what I mean? Like, if the people arrested for it were proportional with the people who actually smoke it, then you wouldn't be able to complain there, right? But no, it's like, why are more people, you know, more people of color going to jail for this when more white people actually do this, right? You know, can't answer those questions there, because it's that's the institutional racism poking its ugly head up. Anyway, let's move on there.
Today, I'm taking 3 steps to end this failed approach. First, I'm announcing a pardon for all prior federal offenses for the simple possession of marijuana. There are thousands of people who are convicted for marijuana possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result of that conviction. My pardon will remove this burden on them. Second, I'm calling on all governors to do the same.
So that's fantastic. So what he just said right there, right? Now here's the thing, right? Most of the time when you get caught, you know, and go to prison, it will be for far more than simple possession. Okay. But there are places, for example, assisted living programs, things like that, that if you have a prior drug conviction, you get automatically refused, right? And those are laws that have been set up as part of like the drug war, you know, right? Like these are laws that go all the way back to the 80s where it was like, you know, we don't want to reward people for getting drugs. So you would say, for example, have a halfway house for when you get out of prison or something, some kind of program or a job training program, right? Like a federal job training program. And it's like, oh, you can take advantage of this, but if you have any drug related charges, then no, you're out. You know what I mean? That is a thing with a lot of federal and state programs like that. And, you know, so getting rid of that requirement, getting a pardon for this, and then having it expunged from your record, which would be the next step. Like after you get a pardon, then you want to have it expunged, right? That would mean that, you know, you don't have to put on your record, yeah, I have a possession charge. And, you know, it could be a thing from when, like, you were 18, you know, 10, 20 years ago, something like that, right? And it's following you around forever. And then, like, say you go to get a job someplace that you're qualified for, and they do a background check, and they find, oh, well, you had a drug conviction from, like, you know, 20 years ago. And yeah, that might not immediately knock you out, but imagine you're an employer and you have one person with a drug conviction and then another person without it. Which one are you going to choose? Even if the first guy may be more qualified, right? You're probably going to go with the second dude. You know what I mean? And, you know, so this is how these types of convictions, right? Having this stuff on your record can mess you up years and years and years later. You know, even like decades later when you're completely, you know, your nose has been clean for 20 years or something, right? It can impact your earning potential. You know, it can really like mess you up. Like, let's say you actually need help. Let's say you actually need to go on some kind of, you know, federal program or whatever. You can get refused for some shit that happened 20 years ago that you've, you know, and it could be a thing where it's like, well, you haven't even done drugs since. Maybe you were just a kid, right? Maybe you're just a kid at a party that got raided by the cops and you got busted, right? And now this is following you around for the rest of your life, and you're, you know, and you're constantly getting refused for jobs, for things like car loans and home loans, stuff like that, you know. So this is going to help a lot of people, right? And I think this is like, I mean, one of the best things I've seen a president do in a long time. I'm like happy now that, you know, Joe Biden is the president. You know, like when we all voted, you know, I don't know about you, but, you know, in the last election, you know, when I voted for him, it was just sort of like, okay, thank God this guy isn't Trump. That's why I voted for Joe Biden. I really give a shit about Joe Biden back then. You know what I mean? I was just more like, yeah, whatever. He's not Trump. Let's vote for him. Now I'm actually happy that I did vote for him. It's like, okay, he's actually doing stuff now that's like helping people. You know, he had this, he had the student loan forgiveness thing that's really going to help people, right? He had the infrastructure bill that's really going to like does a lot to like, you know, regulate fucking pollution and cut carbon emissions. I mean, you know, it could do more, but still, it's like the most, like, that bill right there is like the most we've ever gotten out of the government as far as like global climate change initiatives in literally my lifetime. Right? Like, there hasn't been a bill that's been as impactful as that infrastructure bill, as far as when it comes to you know, global climate change, right? There hasn't been anything like that in the entire time I've been alive. So it's like, yeah, fucking Dank Brandon, dude, fucking clean shit up. This will make me, you know, all he has to do now is avoid any sex scandals. And if he can come through this clean when we hit, you know, 2024, it's like, I'm fucking voting for his ass again. Like, I'll vote for him in a heartbeat. He's already done more in 2 years than like Obama did in like 8 years, almost. I mean, I guess Obama did give us the ACA, so can't count him out completely. But I think he's a much better president. So anyway, let's move on. There's still another minute left of this, so.
For state marijuana possession offenses. Third, the federal
Wait,
government
let's rewind that a
currently
little bit.
classifies Third, the federal government and all governors to do the same for state marijuana possession offenses. Third, the federal government currently classifies marijuana.
Yeah, so that is another thing. This is only going to affect federal people with federal charges. So if you are in prison or if you have a state charge on your record, it's not gonna get rid of that, right? Which sucks, but the president is not able to pardon state crimes, right? That has to come from your state governor. So that's just the system we live in. And here's hoping that some of the governors follow his lead and do the same thing, because here's the other thing, right? Now, if something is no longer illegal, or if it's been decriminalized at the federal level, then why the hell is it still a crime at the state level, right? And this is how laws change. Like we were looking at that map earlier in the stream of different states where marijuana is illegal, right? Why did that happen? Why does it when something becomes a law in one state or gets decriminalized in one state, it tends to quickly spread around the rest of the nation? And why is that? It's because of the precedent that gets set, right? So if you, for example, live in Colorado, right, and you make recreational marijuana use legal in Colorado, then somebody else can go to, say, Vermont, right, and they can file a court case in defense of someone who's been put in prison or who is currently incarcerated, whatever, and they could say, hey, why is this person in jail for a crime for something that, if I were to just go 2 states over, is no longer a crime, right? And usually that doesn't work, and that won't, but that starts getting the ball rolling, and then people start saying, yeah, why is that? Why is this a crime here but not there? Why are we still criminalizing it, when it's legal someplace else? Maybe we should do something about that. Right. And that starts getting the movement going. And then you start seeing things like court cases where things get decriminalized, right, where people get let off early. You start seeing state initiative processes where people go and they put it up on their ballots. They go, oh, well, it's legal fucking next door. It's legal if you just go 100 miles that way, it's legal. So why is it illegal here? That doesn't make sense, right? And, that's a convincing argument to people, right? Because it matters. Like, it matters that we have coherence in our country, that you shouldn't go to jail for if you just happen to live in the wrong area for like some shit that if you live like, literally 50 miles away, then it's 100% legal. It's like that doesn't make sense, you know what I mean? And it starts to spread around. It gets the movement going. And then laws start passing and stuff like that. And you saw the same thing happen with gay marriage. I don't know if you guys remember back in, 2008, right around there. 2007, 2008. One state, legalizes gay marriage, and then it starts spreading around to other states. Nothing like a couple of victories in order to get like to get an actual like movement going. Right. And so this is like, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like, okay, maybe some of these, getting back to the president here. Yeah, maybe some of our governors should start taking that up and be like, hey, maybe we could start petitioning our governors and sending them letters and shit like that, saying, hey, this has been decriminalized on a federal level. So why are we still putting people in jail for it? Right? Why are we doing it on a state level? How does that make sense? How is the state being protected by putting people in jail for something that's no longer a crime on the federal level? Right? And maybe we might have some governors that actually are receptive to that. People like, say, Gavin Newsom, for example. I bet you $1 million he probably does something very similar here pretty soon. Anyway, this right here I think is going to be the most important part. So let's rewind this just a little bit, and then we'll keep going.
Third, the federal government currently classifies marijuana as a Schedule I substance, the same as heroin and LSD, and more serious than fentanyl. It makes no sense. So I'm asking the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General to initiate a process to review how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. Even as federal and local regulations of marijuana change, important limitations on trafficking, marketing, and underage sales should stay in place.
So, to comment on that a little bit, personally, I think LSD should not be a Schedule 1 drug either. Right? LSD is not as dangerous as, like, cocaine or something. It's not. I don't know. Any of you guys have ever done acid, it's they make it sound like you're going to do it, and then you're going to, like, jump off a building and kill yourself, and no. LSD actually has some positive side benefits too. I think it could be used in a medical capacity in a very positive way. There were studies about how it seemingly helps people with like certain types of mental illness, things like schizophrenia, stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, maybe I don't know if I'd want to legalize LSD for recreational use. I mean, that might be going a little too far, but having it as a Schedule 1, I don't think that's necessary. Right, that's the first thing. Speaking of that, if we were to reschedule marijuana as a Schedule 3, for example, then like I said earlier in the stream, yeah, that would definitely do a lot to decriminalize it, because I already sort of touched on this, but a lot of the laws are written that it'll say Schedule 1 drugs. You get this is the prison sentence that you have to mandatory prison sentence for this for all Schedule 1 drugs or something like that, and all it would take is removing it as a Schedule 1 drug, and then a lot of those laws wouldn't apply to marijuana anymore. Some of the laws are very draconian. If you go to Texas, for example, you can get 20 years for possession of a certain amount in Texas. Something like if you possess if you're caught with over an ounce or something, you go to jail for 20 years, mandatory. Right? Imagine that. Imagine going to jail for 20 years in your life because you had an ounce of weed. I mean, I have more than an ounce now, in my freezer. I have a shitload of weed. It's I don't even fucking smoke it anymore. It's just been hanging out there. I mean, I don't know. We made some brownies, some little cupcakes out of it a little while ago, but still, it's because it's legal here in California, so fuck it. Imagine that. It's just for someone just gives you a bag of some stuff, and you can go to jail for 20 years of your life. It's kind of fucking ridiculous. So I think changing it to a Schedule 1 thing is going to have a larger impact, right, than giving pardons to people with prior simple possession, right? Keep in mind this is only simple possession, so if you have any other charges, any other related charges, then those don't count. So for example, if you were charged with intent to sell, you don't get a pardon for that. If you were charged with resisting arrest, or if you have a related weapons charge, something like that, you don't get a pardon for those. It's only possession. So this is really, I mean, but still that could mean the difference right there for somebody who, say, is applying for a job or something. That could really mean the difference between getting that job and getting refused, or someone who's applying for housing. A lot of times, you go to get a apartment or something, and they do a criminal background check on you, right? And you can get refused for any reason, and they don't have to tell you why. And it's well, why? Because this possession charge came up from when you were fucking 19 years old or something, and you got busted at a Grateful Dead concert, whatever, right? So I think that's really going to help. It's going to help a lot of people, and that's kind of a big step towards legalization nationwide, I think. Anyway. And, what he said, the restrictions on sales and marketing and sales to underage children should all stay in place. And, yeah, they should, right? I mean, personally, I think it should be the same as, say, if you're trying to buy cigarettes for a teenager. Teenagers aren't allowed to buy cigarettes, They're not allowed to buy alcohol. Yeah, they get their hands on it anyway, but that doesn't mean that you have to make it legal for them to get it, right? And it should be the same. It should be like, yeah, well, you have to be, 18 or 21 in order to go buy your legal dope smokes or whatever, right? Perfectly nothing wrong with that, Kids will be kids and they'll get their hands on it if they want to, but, they already get their hands on it now anyway, so why does that fucking matter? Let's go ahead and turn this off here. Because, there's only like fucking 10 seconds. Oh, let's just watch the last 10 seconds. Here we go.
Too many lives have been upended because of our failed approach to marijuana. It's time that we right these wrongs.
Okay, well, that was it. All right, let's go ahead and turn that off for now. Any of you out there who may be saying that, this is wrong and children will get their hands on it and blah, 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 I got news for you. If you have a teenager in your house, your teenager has been exposed to marijuana. I hope you understand that. Chances are your kid is probably, if they're 16, 17, they've probably already smoked it at least once, right? And to be honest, I would be concerned if I had a teenager, a child, and my kid didn't at least, have never been exposed to marijuana. Like, if a kid didn't smoke weed, like, I would be, like, concerned that maybe my kid doesn't have any friends, because I don't know about if you guys know this, but everybody smokes marijuana nowadays. Like, it's way more prevalent than when I was a kid, 30 years ago. And back then, it was already everybody smoked weed, right? It was already incredibly easy to get your hands on it, right? And now even more so, because now it's just, it's fucking legal. So you don't have to, like, go to sketchy-ass drug dealers anymore. You just go to a dispensary, and you just get a friend who lies and says they have glaucoma or something, and they get it for free, they can buy it, right? And, and plus, it's like recreational use and shit now, so you don't even have to hide it anymore, right? And so obviously they're going to get their hands on it, but does that mean... So here's the thing about that, because, this will be the defense that, conservatives use in order to claim that it's bad and evil and all that shit. Oh, think of the children. You notice how they always, like, default to children whenever conservatives want to outlaw something? They always use children. It's when they want to outlaw gay marriage, they want to outlaw trans people. They want to do anything that they want to use to take away your rights. They always use children as the excuse. And, they don't actually give a fuck about children. That's the thing to remember. Conservatives do not give a fuck about children at all. At all, whatsoever. You can see this. A perfect example of this is the guy in Georgia, fucking Herschel Walker, right? That story dropped that he, he's a very anti-abortion kind of... He's trying to claim that he is this anti-abortion, pro-child, pro-family values thing. And then it drops that he had a girlfriend that he fucking, like... basically fucking encouraged her to get an abortion when he knocked her up 10 years ago. And then, after she does it, it happens again, and he tells her to get another abortion, and then she says, no, I'm going to keep the kid. And the proof is in the pudding. Are any of the conservatives out there saying that, hey, we should not vote for Herschel Walker? Nope. They're all saying that we should vote for him. They're still endorsing him. Right? And all this stuff. Because they don't actually give a fuck about abortion. They don't actually give a fuck about protecting the children. It's all empty platitudes. All they really care about is power. So they use children as a tool in order to scare people and convince them to vote for them. Right? But when the chips are down, it's incredibly transparent. They just throw that away. So, just another example, right? Anyway, so yes, since Dank Brandon has decided to do something awesome that helps people, this has, of course, made all the conservatives and MAGA chuds and, moral majority types lose their fucking minds. The big sentiment I'm seeing out there from everybody is that he's doing it only to get elected. Which is like, well, duh. Obviously he fucking is. That is what you do when you are running for re-election. You do things that will make people want to vote for you. Is that not true? Seeing how this was a campaign promise, right? Because it was. This is one of his campaign promises, is that he was going to do this. It only makes sense that he would actually do it in order to fulfill a campaign promise, so that way people will vote for him, right? I want to go to here. This is from Our Conservative on Reddit. And I want to show this to you guys here because I thought this was funny. Because it's sort of like, let me just open up the, let me put this down in the chat for you guys so you can look at it later. I do not recommend going to the conservative parts of Reddit because they're filled with ass cancer. But let's just turn this on. Let's make this a little bigger. So this is from Reddit. Our Conservative. Joe Biden is commuting the weed sentences for people locked up in cases of locked up because of his '94 crime bill. So first off, you got to look at the way that they framed it. Like, look at that title. Joe Biden commuting the weed sentences of people locked up because of his '94 crime bill. Right. So, the thing about conservatives is that they can never actually give a compliment to, like, a Democrat at all. Like, they always have to frame it in some way that makes the Democrat look bad. Right. And this is, like, very, because that's the thing, right? Yeah, he sponsored this '94 crime bill that did a lot. He sponsored it. It was another bill that, back in the day, the war on drugs, blah, 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 decriminalizing things, right? And it was bad, and it put a lot of people in prison, right? But look at how that's, like, they're kind of trying to make it sound like, hey, if he didn't pass this bill, marijuana wouldn't have been illegal. It's like, well, no, marijuana was already illegal prior to the '94 crime bill, right? I just like the way that they have to, like, frame everything. Like, the way that they frame stuff. And this one, I think, is really stretching it. It's really stretching. They couldn't find anything negative to say about it, so they had to dig really deep. Try to find some way that they could blame it on him in the first place. I don't know. Also, kind of like this meme here. I thought this was funny. This is from, the Persian king in 300 series or whatever. I think this is a nice contrast to Donald Trump as the God Emperor of mankind. I think this is if they were going to make a meme of Joe Biden, here's one that I think is actually kind of funny and anyway, I don't know. I thought that shit was funny. But there were a couple of, I did want to kind of show you a few things. Some of the comments here, you notice that they're blaming it on him. Can't remember his '94 crime bill, Just a political game for him. He's not doing it because it's the right thing to do. He's doing it because his image is in the toilet. See, that's the thing. And lots of projection going on. And, the reason why I chose this particular thread is because it's pretty representative of the same sentiment I'm seeing on Twitter and elsewhere. But, it's not as vile, so I can actually show it on YouTube. Right? But you're seeing lots of this, lots of the, he's only doing it to, like, to, like, win the election. He doesn't actually care about people, shit like that. And they were talking about it on Newsmax. Oh, God. So you can see this is Our Conservative, so this is where they're getting their information from. And it might be about 6,500 people in the entire nation, right? Trying to make it sound like 6,500 people is a small number of people. Think about that, right? 6,500 people in jail for possession of a plant. That's ridiculous. There shouldn't be that many people like in jail for any drug crimes at all. Like, you know, for just owning, just having the plant, not selling it. You know, simple possession is when you have a small amount for personal use. That's simple possession. That if you have more than a certain amount, then they say that's intent to sell. So this means it's like less than an ounce or something like that. So just having it, just possessing this thing, it's like you walk down the street, you see like a branch on the ground, and if you pick it up and it happens to be a marijuana branch, then you can go to jail. That's what this law is that we're talking about. And they say, oh, it'll be only about 6,500 people in the entire nation. Oh, like that's the small amount that's not going to fucking help people. That's a shitload of people, number one, right? And this is like, you know, this is just like an estimate. It's probably way more when you count past people getting pardons for past convictions, right? For past charges that they had years and years ago. Over the last 40 years, it's way more than 6,500 people. This is probably just the people right now who are in the system right now for federal possession. I mean, fuck. Right. Anyway, but you do see here even some people who are actually on board, you know. I actually don't mind this. He realized it was a mistake, blah, blah, blah. So it's like... But there was one comment here that I really wanted to show you guys that I thought was actually pretty... Where's my comment? There's a comment. Damn it, I should have saved it. Did I save a picture of it? Nah, there was one comment here that I really wanted to see. What happened to... Damn it. Did they, like, delete it or something? Oh, well. Here it is. Okay. This is the comment here that I wanted to show you guys, right? Now, let's kind of follow this conversation a little bit, just so we can get the context here. Trump could have done it, but he didn't, says this guy. This guy, but he did, though. He was the first president to deschedule any cannabis products. 2018 Farm Bill legalized an entire billion-dollar sector of cannabis products, federally including some very popular Delta-8. This build on that. Though unlike Trump's legislation, this can be undone with a stroke of a pen and pardons. Trump similarly had already the exact pardon back with his criminal justice reform package. So basically, the answer from the conservatives when Joe Biden does something that they have to struggle to criticize is to try to give the credit to Trump. Right? That's what this is. And this is what I saw this, not just here, I saw this on Twitter. I saw this on Facebook. I saw it all over the place. Trying to give Trump the credit. That's, yeah, let's turn that off. That's kind of what I wanted to show that, because I think it's beneficial sometimes to troll through these more seedier, disgusting parts of Reddit and Facebook and Twitter in order to kind of see what your people are thinking. Because, yeah, you can go to the pundits, you can go to people like Matt Walsh and shit like that, and, you know, you can get some funny reactions from those people, but it's not necessarily what the base is thinking, right? More often than not, the base is less extreme in certain areas. And this really kind of caught me because the thing about marijuana legalization is that it's something that the current crop of wannabe sort of pseudo-libertarian conservatives actually really supports, right? They really have been kind of like telling us for the last, you know, these are the Ron Paul conservatives, the people that, you know, the Libertarian Party is too fucking left-wing for them, right? This is something that they've been saying for a long time, that they want to, you know, legalize marijuana and stuff like that. So when it actually happens, to kind of see their reaction, it's very sort of like, what's that word, that German word, Schadenfreude? when you take joy in the suffering of others, Schadenfreude, it really gives me a little bit of that sort of. It feels so good just to see these people realize, like, to see them realize, like, hey, maybe we're the bad guys here. Hey, Trump could, you saw the comment, Trump could have done this, but he didn't. Why is that? Maybe it's because we're on the side of the people who want to take rights away. Maybe it's because, maybe they're starting to kind of realize that, hey, the conservatives don't really give a shit about you. They pay lip service to all this stuff. But when it comes down to it, when the rubber meets the road, they never actually fucking pull through. When was the last time a conservative decriminalized anything? See, even what that guy said right there. Well, Trump started doing this. He decriminalized weed products. Yeah, but that's not the same thing. That is, decriminalizing weed products is like basically, making like fucking like cannabis candy bars and shit legal to sell. Making fucking hemp soap legal to sell. Like, so? Who cares about that? How does that, that helps fucking certain like corporations and shit make money. But what about the ordinary normal people that like are unable to get jobs and housing because these fucking stupid things are still coming up on their records and shit like decades later? How about those people? How about like doing some shit to actually help real ordinary people and not fucking businessmen, right? I don't know. It's just the way this shit is framed. It just makes me fucking laugh. So let's see. I did want to, speaking of the pundits, I did want to play a little bit of Ben Shapiro here. Jailing. Shut up, Ben Shapiro. You fucking asshole. So, Ben Shapiro did a segment on marijuana, which I thought would be worth watching. Let's make this a little smaller, because Ben Shapiro is a tiny manlet, and so he deserves to be small. You'll notice he's trying to grow his beard out. We commented a little bit on this last time. He's trying to grow his beard out because he's tired of looking like a little manlet. Sorry, Ben, it's not going to work. You still look like a 13-year-old boy. But let's see what Ben Shapiro has to say about Biden on marijuana possession, So we got the angle from the common, ordinary conservative. Let's get one from a guy whose job it is to have opinions. And, see what he's got to say here.
Other piece of the map on the board for the Republicans, even if it looks like Georgia is beginning to recede as a possibility, thanks to Herschel Walker's personal issues. Well, what has this prompted Joe Biden to do? It's prompted Joe Biden to do what presidents very frequently do. It has prompted him to pander. We saw this in 2012 from Barack Obama. So in 2012, Barack Obama, who was in danger of losing...
Okay, so he's pandering to people by giving them something that they want. Because that's what people want. Remember, marijuana use is very popular. It pulls very high, right? So when a politician actually does something that people want him to do, that's pandering, according to Ben Shapiro. That's just, because just kind of, and I also like to point out the correlation. You notice the people that we just saw, the comments that we just saw, a lot of them were of the he's just doing this to get elected variety. He's just doing it to pander, right? Then I kind of wonder where those people got this opinion from. And then it's like, oh, you go watch Ben Shapiro, and it's exactly what Ben Shapiro said. It's almost like conservatives just don't have any capacity for original thought. Makes you wonder if Ben Shapiro was on board for this, how many of those comments on Reddit that we just saw there would be in support of it. Let's see here.
In his re-elect effort, he started basically parceling off pieces of policy to various, what he felt were demographic interest groups, right? He did the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program in 2012 in an attempt to garner Hispanic votes. He came out in favor of same-sex marriage in order to garner gay and lesbian votes.
So he's talking about Obama now and how Obama pandered. And DACA, of course, the Deferred Action, for children, right, is basically the DREAM Act, is what that is, right? It is getting a pathway to citizenship for the children of undocumented immigrants, right, who came over as very small children. Like, so say your family immigrated illegally when you were 3 years old or something. That means you've lived, and now you're 25. That means you've lived 22 years in the United States. You grew up in the United States. You don't have any roots or connection to whatever home country your parents came from. To conservatives, like Ben Shapiro, those people should just be deported. Hey, your parents came over, dragged you here illegally, you don't belong here. Doesn't matter if you don't speak Spanish or whatever native language it was in the country they came from. Doesn't matter if you don't know anyone there. Doesn't matter if you've never been there. Doesn't matter if you've lived here your entire life. You have friends, family, roots here, right? Too fucking bad. Go back to where you came from. That's Ben Shapiro's answer to that, right? And to allow those people who were put in this position when they were children through no fault of their own, the ability to remain in the country where they've lived their entire lives, that's pandering. So let's just keep that in mind. He only did it. And that's the thing, is that, whenever you can kind of tell this, like, when conservatives don't really have a criticism, like any sort of like negative criticism, like when they can't come up with one, because their stance is like, their real stance is just let's hurt people. So when they can't actually say that out loud, right? So this is really the only thing he could come up with, is that, he's just doing it for the votes. He's just pandering. Yeah, he wants to help people because he's doing it for the votes. Right, like if he didn't have to, he wouldn't do it. I mean, it's kind of pathetic. It's a very sour, grapey, like, take my ball and let's go home kind of criticism here. Anyway, let's move on.
He talked an awful lot about equity, an attempt to jack up the black vote, right? This is something that he did routinely in 2012. And so it is not a surprise that Joe Biden, about a month before the election, has decided that he is now going to issue federal pardons for using or possessing marijuana.
I also want to point out something else that Ben Shapiro just did. He said a bunch of stuff that Obama did in 2012, and then turned around and said, just look what he just said, right? He goes, it's no surprise that Joe Biden is pandering. Why would that? How do those things connect exactly? So because Joe Biden was Obama's vice president, then he's gonna do the exact same shit that Obama did? Is that what you're trying to say? So you're trying to say what? That Obama is really the president now? Right? Is that what he's trying to say here? Like, why did he bring Obama up in the first place? Whatsoever. Obama has nothing to do with this at all. Obama's not in government anymore. He's not the president anymore. It's not like Joe Biden is calling Obama up on the phone and asking him what he should do, right? Or Obama is getting the final say on any legislation, or Obama's signing bills into law. Nothing like that. Obama is retired, lives in fucking Martha's Vineyard or whatever, and is like doing charity work and shit or whatever he's doing. I don't even know what Obama's doing nowadays. You notice how we don't hear a lot about Obama? That's how like vice presidents should be, like old presidents that are like, past presidents. They should not be in the news every 5 fucking minutes for like crimes and shit that they've committed and how they're being investigated by the fucking DOJ for stealing nuclear secrets, and how they're being sued by the fucking state of New York and all this other shit. Like, you notice how, like, that's like Clinton and Obama and like fucking Jimmy Carter and like George Bush, even George Bush Jr. You don't hear about those guys every fucking day and about how like their latest criminal fucking escapades, right? Because that's, what a normal, ordinary, decent president, that's how they're supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to leave the public eye and just sort of go off into the background and do charity work and shit. You're not supposed to maintain yourself in the headlines for fucking your latest, like, Dukes of Hazzard fucking shenanigans on how you, like, screwed the entire country. So, anyway, long story short, Ben Shapiro's bringing up Obama here because, you know, to his viewership, Obama is still the Antichrist. So any opportunity that he can get to link Biden to Obama, he never like misses that chance. Moving on.
Now, this all sounds fine and good to most people because very few people believe that if you smoke a joint, you should go to jail just for smoking a joint. As somebody who deeply believes that pot use is something you're doing...
I like that, too. I like how he couldn't, you know, he still had to acknowledge that most people are on board with this, right? He had to acknowledge it. He couldn't just say that it was bad or whatever. Because that's the truth. Because most people are on board with it, and only the super wacky, evil, dumbass fucking Jesus freak conservatives are the people who aren't on board with it. And, you know, they look more fucking wacky and ridiculous every fucking day, right? And so I just love that. I love how he had to acknowledge that. He had to acknowledge that, hey, you know, he did this, most people like it. Now he's going to struggle to come up with some reason about how he can possibly twist this into being something bad, right? So let's rewind that just a little bit, because he was going to talk about his own personal view on it.
Sounds fine and good to most people because very few people believe that if you smoke a joint, you should go to jail just for smoking a joint. As somebody who deeply believes that pot use is something you're doing that damages you and you should not be using pot, and that most of the things people say about pot, even if they were once true, are no longer true because pot has become significantly more potent in the forms that it is currently distributed. Sometimes it is being laced with fentanyl, which makes it actually addictive. The notion, by the way, that pot is completely not addictive is a lie. There are very, very good scientific studies demonstrating the addictive nature of marijuana for an enormous number of people.
That's bullshit. He's lying. That's not true. Okay. Marijuana. First off, lacing marijuana with fentanyl. All right. In states where marijuana is legal, it is grown domestically. Okay. There are not, you know... And that is one of the things which has a major benefit to legalization, is that there is an industry now, marijuana industry, in those states where it's been legalized, right? You're not bringing in, you know, drug cartels do not sell weed in California anymore. Why? Because they can't compete, you know, because it would, for the prices, you know, it's something like, what, roughly $60 for a dime bag, something like that, right? Last time I checked, I don't know, I haven't bought weed in forever, but it's, you know, it's still relatively competitive, right? It would not, it's simple economics. The drug cartels cannot make money anymore bringing in marijuana to California and then selling it on the street, right? Not when you can just go to any, like, dispensary and, like, get it legally and get stuff that has not been laced with fentanyl, right? So, first off, I don't even know if that's true. Are they really lacing marijuana with fentanyl to make it addictive? That sounds like fucking bullshit. That sounds like some stupid, like fucking Facebook, like, meme or, like, chain letter bullshit, right? To me. So, I personally would not believe that without any actual evidence, number one. Number two, it's like, that doesn't happen because, you know, also, when it's grown legally in the states where it's legal, they're not going to lace it with fentanyl, right? Marijuana legal growing operations are highly, highly regulated. They have to pass all kinds of tests and shit like that to specifically make sure that shit like that doesn't happen. And then also that making sure that people aren't ripping it off and it's all in the up and up. Now, that's the thing about, like, the marijuana industry. It's, like, the most, like, regulated, like, fucking, you know, scrutinized industry there is. And basically why? Because the cops are looking for any excuse at all to shut the shit down. Right. And you'll even see, like, even in states where it's legal, occasionally dispensaries and stuff and growing operations will get shut down. Why? Because marijuana is still legal on a federal level. And so occasionally the feds show up and shut everything down for a little bit. And people get charged and all this other stuff. And then you see things like another thing that happens is that the police will go and there'll be a dispensary and they'll have their money and they'll be going to take their money to a bank. And then the cops will fucking raid them and take all the money, and then confiscate it under, confiscated under fucking drug laws, like the same laws that basically allow police to legally steal from people. What the fuck are they called? The eminent, not eminent domain, but it's a law that basically says any money that is created through illicit circumstance can be seized as evidence, and then you have to prove that it wasn't in order to get it back. It's the same law that, like, say for example, if you're traveling and you have a large amount of cash and a cop pulls you over, he can just take it, and then, like, I can't remember the actual name of it, right, of the actual law, but this is the thing in multiple states. Like if you're traveling and you have, like, say $10,000 in cash, like say this is your life savings, and you're like going to go buy a car with it or something, and then a cop pulls you over and he sees all that money, he'll just take it and say, oh, well, you probably got it through selling drugs. And then you'll never see it again, and you have to sue the police in order to get that money back. And then, so you have to spend, thousands of dollars to get it, and then you'll probably only get a portion of it back. Say, okay, well, the court grants you, here's $6,000 of your 10 grand. This is like true shit. I can't remember what the actual name of the actual law is that am I still streaming? Fuck, I hope so. Wait a minute, hang on a second, folks. Did I shut off my streaming thing? Oh, okay, no, there it is. Alright. Default. Alright, sorry about that. That made me paranoid for a second. But anyway, so yeah, that's another thing that like taking marijuana off of Schedule 1 and like decriminalizing it will fucking get rid of. Then the police won't be allowed to fucking steal from you anymore. So yeah, it's bullshit. What he just said there, the whole fucking lacing it with fentanyl and all that, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. He's lying. And also the studies that say marijuana is fucking like addictive. It's no more addictive than anything else. Alcohol can be addictive to certain people. Okay, the same people who would become alcoholics would get addicted to marijuana, and it's because it's like that's a psychological thing, like that. There's no physical, like, it's not like cocaine where you go into withdrawal symptoms if you don't smoke weed for a certain amount. That's bullshit. Okay, so he's using like bullshit fucking pseudoscience here. There is no rational basis in fucking reality for what Ben Shapiro just said about, marijuana being addictive. Moving on.
Beyond that, the amount of brain damage that you do as a young person regularly using marijuana is extraordinarily real. It is quite serious. It makes you lazy. It makes you stupid. Okay, so you're talking...
Marijuana does not cause brain damage. That's also bullshit. What he's discovering is a study done by a guy named Dr. Daniel Amen, right? Who is that's what he's citing right there. There's a guy named Dr. Daniel Amen who's a psychologist. And what Dr. Amen does is that he uses a thing called SPECT, which is like a brain imaging. SPECT is it's like radioactive imaging where you take an isotope and then they use this machine to track where the isotope goes, and they can see where blood flows in your body, right? And it's a tool that you can use in order to find things like tumors and stuff like that. So this is a legit tool. And what this guy, Dr. Amen, does with it is that he uses it to diagnose psychological problems in your brain by saying like, oh, well, this part of your brain is getting more blood flow than that part of your brain. And that means that you have cognitive whatever disorder, shit like that, right? And it is essentially pseudoscience, what he's doing. And the thing is, Dr. Amen basically says that, okay, well, by taking all of these scans of people's brains, he's claiming that marijuana use prematurely ages your brain, right? Which is, the thing is, there's no science behind that. Like, he hasn't published any papers on that. He hasn't done any, like, actual science on it. This is just a claim, right? It's pretty much essentially bullshit. And so there's an article on this that I want to put down for you guys, and it's this from the Washington Post. And I'm not going to read this. I'm not going to read it because it's long and you know, only sort of semi-relates to the thing. But I will put this down in the chat for you guys so you can read it later. That's basically, there's the link down in the chat. Oh, wait, that's too long. Okay. Can I just delete that one then? All right, you know, maybe just go to, like, tiny URL and, like, grab it. Let me copy this. Here you go. Okay, well, that was way too long, but here, let me just delete that. There we go. There's the tiny URL link to the thing I just showed. It is basically, yeah, it's like fucking phrenology, is what this guy, Dr. Amen, does. He basically is just sort of like assuming, oh, this part of your brain controls XYZ. And, you know, there's not enough blood flow to it. And there's like, but there's no actual science to it. The article there gets into it, makes it sound a lot better. So, yeah. Anyway, so Ben Shapiro, I don't know if he's lying here, but he definitely doesn't know what he's talking about. Moving on.
I'm speaking as a person who is very anti-pot use. With that said, do I want people going to jail for simply using pot? The answer, of course, is no. However, if you...
Bullshit. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I guarantee it. I bet you $1 million if I searched hard enough, I could find rather recent comments from Ben Shapiro saying that people should go to jail for pot use. I bet you I could find that. I think right now Ben Shapiro is pandering to his base. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna like put money on that or anything, but definitely sounds like he's bullshitting me here.
If you're a drug dealer, I would prefer that you be in jail. Because drug dealers are dealing drugs to minors. They're dealing drugs to kids. And there are legal pot dispensaries all over the United States. I would say, unfortunately, now at this point. But if you're dealing drugs illegally, you should go to jail. So what Joe Biden is now doing is he's really attempting to remove the criminal records of an enormous number of people in an attempt to jack up the vote, particularly among young people and among minorities who are disproportionately represented in the population of people who are in jail for possession.
So you'll notice that video we watched of Joe Biden making this announcement, did he say that he was expunging the records of drug dealers? Nope. He did not say that. He specifically said that all of the prohibitions against sales and marketing to minors, specifically he said to minors, and illegal sales and all that should remain in place. So no, Joe Biden is not trying to remove the criminal records of drug dealers. He specifically said he wasn't going to do that. He said it was simple possession only. Why did Ben Shapiro then say drug dealers should stay in jail? Because he's conflating this and misrepresenting what Joe Biden said, right? This is what Ben Shapiro does. You notice he just said 2 sentences there. I think drug dealers should stay in jail, right? That's what he said. He didn't expand on that. He didn't say what Joe Biden said about drug dealers, about actual deals and sales. He didn't say any of that stuff. He mentioned drug dealers very quickly and then moved on in order to plant in his viewers' heads the idea that Joe Biden wants to pardon drug dealers. That's why he said that. Okay. It was specifically for that reason, in order to mislead people. The thing is, if you go back and you try to accuse him of that, he has an out. And he goes, well, I didn't say that Joe Biden wants to pardon drug dealers. No, but that's what you implied, right? So Ben Shapiro has a team of editors that can go through and remove all of this stuff. That could go through and make sure his message is on point, right? And the fact that they left that in there on purpose, it kind of shows what they want that message to be. You know what I mean? So make no mistake, Ben Shapiro, I call him an idiot a lot in a lot of my videos, right? He's not stupid, right? He's an idiot because his stances, the people think, like his stances on issues that people think are so intelligent. It's just the usual normal standard conservative bullshit. And that's why I call him an idiot, because his actual political stances are fucking dumb, right? But the man himself is very, astute when it comes to his messaging, when it comes to his imaging, when it comes to the image he projects and the opinions that he wants to communicate to his base, right? And that's why when you watch a Ben Shapiro thing, you get angry. I mean, especially if you hold the same opinions that Ben Shapiro holds, you get angry, right? Why? Because this is how he's doing it on purpose. He's influencing you like this in order to make you angry so that you keep coming back. This is his model. This is how Ben Shapiro makes money, by fucking rage posting. So, let's move that back just a little bit there.
Marijuana is extraordinarily real. It is quite serious. It makes you lazy. It makes you stupid. Okay, so I'm speaking as a person who is very anti-pot use. With that said,
it does make you lazy, yes. Marijuana does not make you stupid. It makes you lazy as hell, though. I agree with that.
Do I want people going to jail for simply using pot? The answer, of course, is no. However, if you are a drug dealer, I would prefer that you be in jail. Mm-hmm. Because drug dealers are dealing drugs to minors. They're dealing drugs to kids. There are legal pot dispensaries all over the United States.
The lies become so, apparent when you know what to look for, don't they? when you can identify when the lies are coming at you, they become so transparent. It's just so anyway, it's kind of sickening almost.
States, I would say, unfortunately now at this point. But if you're dealing drugs illegally, you should go to jail. So what Joe Biden is now doing is he's really attempting to remove the criminal records of an enormous number of people in an attempt to jack up the vote, particularly among young people and among minorities who are disproportionately represented in the population of people who are in jail for possession offenses.
You mean he's doing something that voters want? See. But he's doing it just for the votes. Well, yes, that's what politicians do when they want to get reelected. They do shit that voters like. Why is this such a bad thing? It's kind of the same way that Donald Trump wanted to build a giant, ridiculous cartoon wall that didn't work. He knew it didn't work. We knew it wouldn't work. On some level, his constituents knew that the shit wouldn't work either. That's the thing when you're in a cult, folks. It's sort of like, when you're in a cult, when you're in a thing like Amway or something, or anything like that. It's like, in the back of your mind, you know that it's bullshit. You believe it anyway. Why do you believe it anyway? Because you're there for the community, right? People knew his fucking dumbass wall wasn't going to solve immigration, illegal immigration, right? They knew it was a joke to begin with. They knew it was probably illegal and it was going to fall apart and they would never actually get done. They went for it anyway. Why? Because that's the community they were in. It made them feel good, right? I mean, yeah, maybe Joe Biden's no different. Maybe Joe Biden really is doing it just for the votes. Yeah, but in the meantime, we're getting something that fucking helps people. So it's like, Joe Biden can pander to me all he wants. I welcome it. Know why? Because it's fucking helping people. So good. I hope he panders. He bought my vote. Good for him. Right? Do some more shit to help people, Joe Biden. I'll vote for you, I'll get other people to vote for you too. Anyway, that's how politics is fucking run. That's the thing. It's like, this guy, Shapiro's got no fucking criticism that he can actually level at him. So he's got to be like, oh, he's just doing it for the votes. It's like, come up with some real criticism here. Like, how is it really going to hurt people? Can you think of something with your big boy head here, Ben Shapiro? You're supposed to be the cool kid's philosopher. You're supposed to be the smart guy that conservatives go to for answers. Don't you have any fucking answers here? Moving on.
I'll explain in a minute why this is incredibly stupid. Okay, but here's what he just did. He put out a statement saying yesterday, quote, "As I often said during my campaign for president, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana," which comes as a shock to Kamala Harris, the cop.
So far, not seeing why this is incredibly stupid. Not seeing, he said he will explain why this is incredibly stupid. So let's make sure that he actually does that. Also, I noticed a little dig against Kamala Harris. It's because Kamala Harris was a drug warrior, essentially. And, the thing is, now, if she were still part of, if she were still the DA or whatever, she'd have to convict other people. See, I don't know why this would piss Kamala Harris off. Because, per se, there's plenty of other crimes that DAs around the country can fucking, convict people of, right? And besides, this is for low-level possession only, so if you're a weed dealer and you're dealing illegally, which I don't know why anybody in a state where it's legalized would be fucking doing that nowadays, but if you are, you can still go to jail. So what's the problem? Right? He had to throw that little dig in there too, you notice, against Kamala Harris, because he can never go through an entire thing either without trying to throw something at Kamala Harris, even though that has nothing. I mean, if you really think about it, so the fact that she she made her career on enforcing drug laws has nothing to do whatsoever with decriminalizing marijuana. It's something that kind of sort of sounds like it might be hypocritical, but it isn't if you really think about it. It's so what? Okay, it was illegal then, now it's not. Fucking dumb. They have nothing. That's what I'm trying to say. He's got absolutely fucking nothing. Moving on.
Sending people to prison for possessing marijuana has upended too many lives and incarcerated people for conduct that many states no longer prohibit. Criminal records for marijuana possession have also imposed needless barriers to employment, housing, and educational opportunities. And while white and black and brown people use marijuana at similar rates, black and brown people have been arrested, prosecuted, and convicted at disproportionate rates.
Okay, that is all true. That is all true. It's because he was reading that. That was actually the statement from the White House. That's why it's true. Ben Shapiro said that he was going to explain to us why this is all stupid. So I'm still waiting to hear why he thinks it's stupid.
You can see he's saying the quiet part out loud here. He's saying black and brown people are going to jail more often for drugs, and so I want to free those people of any sort of records that they can presumably vote again.
Ah, so they can presumably vote again. Why is that the quiet part? Right? Why is that bad? Okay, what he just said, alright, so we can free them so they can vote again. Okay, what's the problem? Should you, if you get caught with marijuana, never be allowed to vote again in your entire life? Right? Because that's what alright, so let's just take the other argument here. Okay, so he's saying that, okay, well, Joe Biden did this so that black people who have prior possession will vote for him. Okay. So the opposite of that, the alternative to that argument is that people who get caught with marijuana should never be allowed to vote. Ever. This is why somebody who doesn't smoke weed shouldn't really have the ability, you shouldn't, well, okay, I don't want to frame it like that. This is why you shouldn't listen to people who've never done drugs before when it comes to drug policy. Ben Shapiro has no fucking clue what he's talking about. I believe him when he says he's never smoked marijuana before. I believe him. Okay. You know why? Because Ben Shapiro was like a uber nerd growing up. Ben Shapiro was a violin prodigy when he was a kid. You know what that means? That means he got no girls, right? He was a violin prodigy, right? He was a violin prodigy who supposedly skipped grades and shit like that. That means he had very little friends. That means no girls like that. That means he wasn't getting invited to the cool parties. It's pretty obvious that he never smoked weed before because he was never, in social situations where people had it. That's why, right? And now he's just like, oh, I never smoked it. It fucked you up. It makes your brain messed up. Yeah, whatever. That shows that you have no fucking clue. If you would have actually done it before, you would know that it's harmless. Okay? That's like when you listen to like Obama. Like when Obama was talking, I remember when Obama was running for president, and they were talking about marijuana, and he was like, well, I inhaled. that was Obama's stance on it. He goes, yeah, weed's not a big deal. I smoked it. I inhaled, like, because Bill Clinton said, oh, I smoked it, but I didn't inhale. But right, and Obama goes, I inhaled, and it was like that kind of told me right there. It's like, okay, well, he's a normal guy that's not bullshitting anybody, and anyone who's ever done it before can tell you that it's not like you don't get possessed by demons. It's not like the first time you smoke it, you turn into a fucking coconut or something, or your brain falls out of your fucking ears and you're just stupid for the rest of your life. No, it's like smoke. It's like the same thing as drinking alcohol, essentially. The impact on your body and your brain is smoking alcohol. It's the same fucking thing. And, yeah, I mean, maybe if you're excessive with it, there may be some side effects and things like that. For most people aren't. Most people don't smoke every fucking day. Right? I mean, are there people who drink beer every fucking day? Yeah, and you look at them. Are their brains fucked up? Sure they are. They have giant beer bellies? Yes. Do we fucking do we outlaw that shit? No. Why do we do it with marijuana? It's like, it's supposed to be a free country. If you want to fuck your brain up, it's your choice to do so, wouldn't you say? I don't know. Guy has no fucking. It's like listening to a virgin talk about sex. That's what it's like, where you could just tell. Like, you ever read something like on Reddit or something, and it's like, it'll be obviously this guy's never actually gotten any. He has no clue what he's talking about. Some like bizarre fucking incel shit or whatever, right? Like you're like, okay, well this is obviously some fucking kid. I don't know. It's embarrassing is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, moving on.
Today, I'm announcing 3 steps I'm taking to end this failed approach. First, I'm announcing a pardon of all prior federal offenses of simple possession of marijuana. I've directed the AG to develop an administrative process for the issuance of certificates of pardon to eligible individuals. There are thousands of...
Don't just read, Ben Shapiro. Let's fast forward. Tell us why it's stupid, please.
Either. Third, I'm asking the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the AG to initiate the administrative process to review expeditiously how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. Federal law currently classifies marijuana in Scheduled 1 of the Controlled Substances Act, the classification meant for dangerous substances. This is the same schedule as for heroin and LSD, and even higher than the classification for fentanyl and meth, the drugs that are driving our overdose epidemic. Finally, even as federal and state regulation of marijuana changes important limits of marijuana, and they're for marijuana possession. The reason that people are going to jail for marijuana possession is because that this is bad policy. It's because trafficking, marketing, and underage sales should stay in place. Too many lives have been upended because of our failed approach to marijuana. It's time we right these wrongs. Okay, so the real reason Joe Biden is doing this is obviously as a political pander.
You've told us already. Thank you. Now please tell us why it's stupid. Remember, he said that he was going to explain to us why this is stupid. So please tell us.
The reason that this is bad policy is because simple possession for marijuana is usually pled down. The reason that people are in jail for possession of marijuana is not because there are people who are smoking pot in their bedroom and the police bust down the door. That is not why people are going to jail for marijuana possession. The reason that people are going to jail for marijuana possession is because that is a plea deal. Statistically speaking, a very high percentage of people who are in prison for simple possession were originally charged with drug trafficking. There are people who actually had pounds of marijuana, and they're distributing the pounds of marijuana. And because our justice system is so wildly overburdened, what very often ends up happening is a prosecutor comes to the lawyer for the defense, and they say, listen, we can go to trial on the drug trafficking offense, and your client goes to jail for 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay. Why is that dumb? So it's a plead down. All right, first off, if you have pounds of marijuana, right, first, what he's saying is not necessarily true, right? Yes, you could plead down to simple possession. Okay. But if you get caught with, like you just said, caught with pounds of marijuana, right? If you get caught with pounds of marijuana, they're not going to allow you to plead down. Right? You won't be able to, you can only plead when they don't have a case against you so much, right? That's when you can take a plea deal. Okay, when they'll say, okay, you have this, If you admit to this charge, we'll drop this other charge. Why do they do that? It's because they don't think that they will be able to get a conviction on that other charge. And so they're doing it in order to scare you into admitting that you were, that's how plea deals work. The cops come to you and be like, okay, we're going to charge you with this, this, and this, and if you get convicted, you'll get this much time in prison. You'll get, 20 years or whatever, right? If you decide to take this plea deal that we're offering you, then you only get 5 years. And most people get scared and be like, even if they didn't do it sometimes, whatever crime it is, and then they'll plea out because they think the chances of them getting convicted for this other thing are too great and they don't want to take that risk. That's what basically plea dealing is, right? Nobody is going to someone that if they have fucking 8 pounds of marijuana and are obviously like selling or whatever, or drug trafficking, whatever, right? Cops are not coming to him saying, okay, we'll plead this down to simple possession. No, that's not how that works, right? Because they have you dead to rights. If they have the evidence that you did it, we found these drugs on you, we have them in evidence, then they're not going to give you that deal. Now, you may get it for other reasons if you decide to turn other people in, shit like that. If you decide to, give them information they can use in order to catch other people, then yeah, they may offer you plea deals, right? So but what he's saying here, this is going to let drug dealers off, because this is what he's leading up to. This is going to let off drug dealers. That's what he's trying to imply. That's complete 100% grade A bullshit, right? This is not going to let off drug dealers, right? Drug dealers do not plead down to simple possession. Simple possession is not, simple possession is like having the amount for your personal use. That's possession. Possession means just having it on you. Oh, I just have, it's like if you have less than an ounce or something like that, that's possession, right? This is like, it's an amount small enough that you could conceivably not make enough money to sell. Like if you're selling it, right? So if you have fucking a shitload, like Ben Shapiro just said, then no, you're not getting possession at all. And they're not going to allow you to plead down to possession either. That's not true. He's completely misleading his audience here. That's bullshit. Fucking see the lies, dude. They're so apparent. Moving on.
Years for violating federal drug trafficking statute. Or, alternatively, your client goes to jail for 1.5 years. And we plead it down, right? Plead it down to simple possession. In other words, many of the people who are now going to be issued pardons are not actually just people who are smoking pot in their basement and being losers. A huge number of those people are people who were actively trafficking and pled that down, criminally speaking, to a possession charge.
That's a lie. That's bullshit. That's complete bullshit, right? What he just said is not true at all. There's no truth to that whatsoever. That's a complete lie. Here's the thing, none of his audience, none of them are going to ever question what he just said. Because Ben Shapiro is the smart conservative. He's the cool kid's philosopher. Obviously, he must know what he's talking about, when in real life he has no fucking clue. He pulled that out of his ass. There's no fucking evidence for that. That's bullshit. Jesus Christ. And here's the thing, folks. Okay, let's assume that it was true. Alright? Let's assume that okay, alright, I will capitulate and say there may be cases in the history of the world, of the universe, where someone caught for dealing may have pleaded down to simple possession. I think it's bullshit. I would like to see some evidence of that. But I will capitulate this point and say it may have happened in the history of the universe. Okay. Now that person is going to have their record expunged. They're going to have that removed. They're going to get a pardon for that. Why is that a bad thing? Why is that bad? Right? Let's say that this happened in Colorado back in the 90s. Let's say that you were a person, you get busted, you were selling weed, maybe you were doing it when you were in college in order to make money. Maybe you were just a small-time guy. You know, I used to know a dude way back in the day that was pretty small-time, you know, and was just sort of like, I don't know where he got his shit from, but, you know, he sold it. I know I'd known a couple of weed dealers over the course of my life, you know. None of them were bad people. You know, none of them were like big-time criminals fucking murdering people and shit. You know, weed has always been, you know, sort of the smallest, you know, like, you know, safest thing when it came to like this kind of thing. Even then, I mean, he still dealt with shady people, but I didn't really know any of them. But still, let's say that that was you, and, you know, you got caught with, I don't know, a pound or something, right? And now, let's say you did that 20 years ago, and now it's legal in the state where you live. So now if you would get caught with that, and you could, now you could do that legally. You could conceivably start a distribution company or something, be legit with it, pay taxes with it, stuff like that. So why is it wrong to pardon people for something that isn't a crime anymore? Right? Why is it wrong to give someone a pardon who committed a crime where years later we've decided as a society that that should not be a thing that people go to jail for? You know? Seriously, why is that a problem? Should we not help those people get this off of their record so that they can get on with their lives? You know? Seriously, like, let's say that we, you know, let's say that we get rid of a law that said wearing helmets while you're on a motorcycle is required, right? Let's say we made it a felony if you didn't wear a motorcycle helmet, and you could go to prison for 5 years, right? Then let's say years later we decide to get rid of that and say that's ridiculous. Nobody should go to prison for not wearing a helmet. So should the people who actually went to prison for that law that we've decided is no longer a law, should they still be punished for this? Right? I don't see how that's a bad thing. That, I mean, that's just putting an undue burden on people for things that should no longer be illegal. It's ridiculous, folks. I don't know. You know what? I can't stand Ben Shapiro anymore. Let's get rid of this asshole. Plus, I want to talk about Velma. I like how we went through, let's see, this was 5 minutes. There's only another 3 minutes left of this segment. He has still not told us why he thinks that this is stupid. Maybe he'll get to that in the remaining 3 minutes, but I just simply don't give a fuck anymore because Ben Shapiro is an idiot. Let's remove that. So, let's see here. I did want to talk about one more thing, because this stream has been called Weed and Cartoons. So, the cartoon segment is, of course, from the news that Velma from Scooby-Doo is now gay. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. In the least surprising character development ever, the latest movie, Velma's now gay. Kind of one of those things we all sort of thought Velma was already gay. I mean, anyway, I want to show you guys this thing here. This is from Twitter, right? Let's turn on the monitor again. So, what are we talking about? Velma's gay. Well, there's a movie that's coming out, basically, a new Scooby-Doo movie, right? And it has this scene here. So let me just make this actually, let's make this a little bit smaller so it doesn't take up the entire thing. It has this scene coming soon.
And as promised, here are your Scooby snacks. Jinkies. And as...
Yep. So, yeah. Let's exit that. And in case you didn't think it was actually canon, Here's another scene from this latest Scooby-Doo movie. Here we go.
So, what do you think about bringing Coco along?
Oh, is she coming with us? I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, it's just weird because I didn't know convicted felons were your type.
What? Type? Me? Please. Who has time for a type? We have our work cut out for us, and I am focused like a laser on... Okay, who am I kidding? I'm crushing big time, Daphne. What do I do? What do I say?
So, what do you...
Okay. So those two scenes, this is all we've seen so far of this movie. I don't even think this movie's out yet. Is it even out yet? Yeah, this is making some conservatives lose their fucking minds. You know, I thought that was funny. Let me put this down for you guys in the chat also so that you can see those little clips if you want to. Let me copy that. Just copy link. Thank you so much. And let's go over to live stream YouTube studio. Put that down in the chat. Professor Strangefinger. They do enjoy living in a world of paranoid fantasy. Yes, they do. So anyway, this is of course causing people to go crazy. You know, Steven Crowder in particular has lost his mind over this. Here's another clip from, this is from Reddit here. Let me just go ahead and put a little link to this if you guys want to follow along. This is a very, very short clip, thankfully. I can't stand...
Okay, so look.
Actually, you know what? I can just go straight to the Twitter. Here we go.
Here's...
Shut up. Quiet, Steven Crowder. So, I can't stand Steven Crowder either. He is like the biggest asshole who has ever lived. Thankfully, this is only like fucking a minute long, but let's see what Steven Crowder has to say about a gay cartoon character.
Okay. So look, come on. Here's the macro. I don't care if you want to have a lesbian character. Right. Now there is a when you have people who are gay or lesbian, which is atypical, and by that I mean, you know, it's always been about 2% of the population. Now it's claimed to be 7%.
You ever notice how they always start out like, this is something that every single one of them said. Ben Shapiro said the same thing. They always claim that they don't care about the thing that they're about to go on a ridiculous rant about. I don't care if you like smoking weed. I don't care if you like a gay cartoon character. And then they go on for like a good fucking like, 30-minute rant about how the thing they don't care about is like this giant fucking problem that's going to destroy society and all this other shit. You know, you ever notice that? It's like if you really didn't give a fuck about, cartoon characters that were gay, don't you think you would take your precious time on your show and talk about something else? I mean, we all have limited time on this earth, folks. There's the one thing that's most valuable to any of us is time. Time is more valuable than money. Because once time is gone, you don't get time back. Right? Once time is gone, and that's why it's so bad when you watch a shitty movie. You go, God, this was a piece of shit. I just wasted 2 hours of my life on this thing. It's gone. That's why when you play a shitty video game, it sucks so bad. It's like, God, this thing fucking sucked. I just wasted all this time on it. Etc., and so on. Right? Because time is a limited resource. So if you really didn't give a fuck, I'm sure there's other things, Steven Crowder, that you care more about, right? How come you're not, like, putting those other things on your show, right? Obviously, you think gay cartoon characters are important. Well, really, it's just because he makes money. Because he goes, oh, here's another opportunity that I have as Steven Crowder to piss people off and outrage, and fucking outrage shitpost, and that'll get people coming to my dumbass fucking channel. That's really what it's all about. Again, remember, this is all money for these people. Ben Shapiro doesn't give a fuck about any of this stuff. Steven Crowder doesn't really fucking care. It's just all ways that they could make people angry so they can make money. And it becomes just so much more transparent once you understand, once you listen to these like ridiculous donut-headed chuds in that context. It all makes so much more sense than if they took it seriously. Somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene believes her own. She gets high off her own supply. She believes her own hype. She actually does believe in the fucking Jewish space lasers and the democratic like brain baby suckers and stuff like that. She thinks all this shit's real. Steven Crowder, does he really give a fuck? Probably not. He's doing it to make money. At least that's what I think. I don't know. Moving on.
And when you go LGBTQ, AAIP, and that includes queer and bisexual, but a very small percentage of the population. So it necessitates a conversation with kids. Well, hold on a second. What is that? Why is a woman making out with a woman? Why are they having a romantic relationship? Because it doesn't necessitate a sexual follow-up question if you just see a man and a woman, because that is the norm.
Right.
It does if it's atypical. Kids ask questions. So I don't think it should be ejected into kids shows.
Why? Why is it so bad if kids ask questions? Okay, what did he just say? Okay, let's just break down what he just said there, because he spoke all super fast and everything, on purpose in order to obfuscate his actual real opinion. That's why Ben Shapiro does that too. That's what I think he does anyway. Right? It makes you sound intelligent, and then it also obfuscates your opinion because you sort of zerg rush somebody's ears and not give them enough time to, actually think about what you're saying, right? But what did he just say? Okay, well, gay people, non-straight people are a small segment of the population. Okay. And that's why it necessitates asking questions when you put it in a kid's show. Why? Why would that matter? Number one. Number two, what's wrong with kids asking questions? Okay. It would seem to me that if what he's saying, let's take his premise, right? Let's steelman his present premise here. That if gay people, if non-straight people, gay people, trans people, queer people, etc., are such a small segment of the population, right? Then it would seem to me that children would not encounter them very much in their daily life. Is that true? Right? Seems to me that children would not know who these people are and what they're all about, and what orientation means and how it's different than gender, stuff like that. Seems to me these should be things that children should learn, because they will eventually in their lives meet people who fall under these umbrellas. Is that not right? One of the things that we like to BS ourselves about in this country about children's entertainment is that it should have a social value, right? This is why you would see things like, although not so much anymore, but, for a long time in this country, it was sort of like, children's entertainment should not just be half-hour long commercials. It wasn't until the 80s that changed, right? And it's still, to some extent, kind of like that. But it's not as bad as it was back in the 80s when it was just like literally fucking half-hour commercials, or Transformers and He-Man and G.I. Joe, etc. Look at all these toys you could buy, right? It's still like that a lot today, but they like to claim that, that children's entertainment should have some type of moral value to pass on. That's why you'll see things like, knowing is half the battle, shit like that. So, if children's entertainment should be informative and should pass on morals and values and shit, then what values do you want to pass on to your children? What do you want to teach them, right? Seems to me that teaching them that everybody is, people that you don't encounter a lot deserve respect, right? And that everybody is equal, and that you shouldn't make fun of people because they're different, seems to me that would be a pretty good moral that you should pass on. Don't you think? So why would that be a problem? Getting back to what he said, well, they're going to ask questions. If they see two mommies kissing or two daddies hugging in a cartoon, they're going to ask questions. Why, daddy? Why is one daddy hugging and kissing another daddy? What's wrong with that? This is what you want children to do. You want children to ask questions. Do you not want them to ask questions? Right? Shouldn't kids be learning shit when they watch TV? Right? I mean, this is what they want us to believe, right? They want us to believe that all children's entertainment should be wholesome and shit. What's more wholesome than trying to teach kids not to make fun of people and that everyone is, equal, and that people that look weird or look different than you, or who you think look weird or whatever, right, deserve respect. What's so wrong about teaching these to kids? When did that become a bad thing to teach children? That they should be tolerant of people who believe things that they don't believe, who look different than they look, that it's wrong to make fun of people, right? It's wrong to pick on people. It's wrong to bully people. How did that become a bad thing? I have a comic. I think I want to share this to you guys. Maybe I'll do it next stream. I have this comic book called Disgusting Comics, #1, right? And one of the stories is about a gay kid. And in the entire story, everyone just beats the shit out of him because he's gay. I'm not kidding. I'm not making it up. This is from 1987, right? I bought this comic book when I was 10 years old. They sold this to children, right? I'll have to look this up. You know what? Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find... It was called Disgusting... Oh, shit. All right. Disgusting Comics. Comics #1. See if I can find an image of this. Disgusting Comics, September 1987. And here we go. Worth Point. See, can I see a thing to read it online? Hip Comic. Out of stock. Too bad I can't find a thing to read it online. But this is it. This is Disgusting Comics #1. Hambo goes nuts, machine guns his parents. Right? And this is it. It's a girl, it's a boy, it's Ben Gay. That's the story in Disgusting Comics #1. Let me see if I can actually find the comic. That would be great. If I could find, let's see, Ben Gay. If I could actually find that. Because it is the most ridiculous homophobic shit ever. Like, let's see, read online. See if I can find a thing to read it online. Because I think you guys would really like this. Nah, don't see it. I'll have to scan it in and show it to you guys. But basically, it's the most homophobic shit ever, right? They sold this to me as a child. I bought it because it had a kid with a machine gun on the cover. It was awesome. I don't know what the fuck. I was like 10 years old, right? I still have it. The most homophobic thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I will do a stream this Wednesday, and we will read this comic together. And you'll see the kind of morals that they would, pass on to children back in the 1980s, right? Seems to me that we're better today for doing what we do, for acknowledging that there are such things as gay people, and that it's wrong to make fun of them, that it's good to tolerate people who are different than you. Seems to me that's better. Steven Crowder doesn't like that because it inconveniences him and makes him have to answer questions that his children gave. That answer, that whole, it makes kids ask questions, it's a bullshit cop-out, folks. Moving on. This is not that long. Let's keep watching.
The other thing, though, is, look, there are plenty of lesbian characters and gay characters. There's not a problem with that. Right? The BBC has it as low as references available at loudofcrowd.com.
Plenty of lesbian and gay characters. What, in kids' shows? Really? Name one from before the year 2000. Can you? He just said there are plenty of lesbians and gay characters. Okay. We're talking about cartoons, right? Can you name any gay characters in a children's cartoon show before the year 2000? I'll do you one better. Before the year 2008, can you name any? I think the first time I ever saw a gay person in a cartoon was Steven Universe. Even Steven Universe, it's not explicitly said. Steven Universe is the gayest thing ever made. I don't know if you guys have ever seen. It's really good. I really love Steven Universe. It's like one of my favorite shows ever. Right? It is the gayest thing ever made. It's incredibly gay. But I think that was probably the first time I saw a gay character in a cartoon show for kids, right? Now you see them all over the place. You know, the She-Ra, for example, had same-sex parents. You know, there's the brief 2-second scene in fucking Buzz Lightyear and so on. These are all recent examples. Name one from the 90s. Name one from the 80s, the 90s, nothing like that. The closest thing you could probably think of from back then was Thelma from Scooby-Doo. And even then, Thelma was always shown as straight. It was just she was a sort of coded gay, you know. Daphne was the fucking hot one. She's obviously getting it on with Fred. Thelma is the frumpy, intelligent girl. And what was the message that sent to people from kids in the 70s, right? What was the message? The message was, don't be plain or you'll be Thelma. Thelma was obviously second fiddle to Daphne, right? In Scooby-Doo, Daphne was the one that everybody had the hots over. Thelma was the goofy, nerdy girl that nobody looked twice at. And that was the message, and she was coded as a lesbian. That's how she dressed, that's how she looked, that's how she acted, right? They never showed Thelma having any love interest, not in the original shows, you know, not really. You know, later other shows, she has heterosexual relationships. I think there was one where she gets it on with Shaggy in one of the shows, something like that. And there's another image floating around where she has a thing for Johnny Bravo, etc. Blah, 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 blah. Right. So, considering if any of those are canon, maybe she's just bisexual. I don't know. But still, just, you know, the point is, what he's saying is not true, you know. There were plenty of gay and bisexual, you know, characters. No, there weren't. Not in kid shows. Not ever. Not until very, very recently. It's only been very, very, very recently. Like the last, literally, you know, 8 to 10 years. That we have, you know, that representation in children's entertainment for gay and lesbians and trans people has even become a thing. So, he's completely full of shit. Moving on.
.com 2021, they said 12% of all U.S. TV characters were LGBTQ. And I've actually seen that number as high as 16%. Let's call it 12, 14%.
What did he just say?
It's still, 2021, they said 12%.
Wow. What's wrong with that? Okay. New report has found LGBTQ representation on US TV is at a high, with nearly 12% of regular characters who are LGBT. Up to 2.8. Okay. What's so wrong about that?
Of all U.S. TV characters were LGBTQ. And I've actually seen that number as high as 16%. Let's call it 12, 14%. It's still at least more than double, likely triple that of the pop. There are plenty of gay and lesbian characters. They're just not as popular. So if we're going to bitch about a...
Oh, he's trying to say that there's more representation than in real life. That's not true either. So, did you know among Generation Xers, right? That's my generation, Generation Xers, that 20% of Generation Xers say that they're part of the LGBTQ community. Either gay or lesbian or bi or trans or something like that. 20%, that's 1 in 5, right? So, it's even higher for millennials and, like, you know, Gen Zers. It's even higher than 20% for those people. So 16%, I mean, that's great. That's still not representative of the actual real life there. So once again, Steven Crowder's full of shit. But what's his fucking point? What's his point? Now there's too many? Whatever.
appropriation, why do you need to take a straight character and make her lesbian? Just go make your own. It's not our fault people don't want to watch it, just because we don't want to watch a bunch of cartoon women shop at Bass Pro.
Okay, go make your own. Now that is the first intelligent thing that he said this entire time. Alright, let's turn this fucking moron off. Steven Crowder is like the dumbest of the fucking dumb, like, pundits. He's the stupidest of the fucking pundits. But, that is the first thing that he said this whole time that made any sense. I agree with that, right? The reason why I agree with that is not because of what Steven Crowder said. You know, because he's coming at it from a, like, you know, white erasure fucking standpoint. No, I don't believe that. I do support the idea that, yeah, we should come up with new characters. We should come up with new franchises. We should come up with new stories. And the reason why I say that is because every fucking thing that comes out now is a sequel or a reboot, right? And this is a big problem in Hollywood. It's like, you know, in Hollywood and movies and TV and everything, they just reboot everything nowadays, right? So, you know, yes, I agree with that. Yes, we should have, especially when it comes to franchises, we should have new franchises. We should not just be, like, rebooting Spider-Man every 5 years or something, right? We should come up with some new stories, some new characters, some new stuff. Yeah, okay, so maybe you introduce a new character who's gay. Alright, that's fine. But I also don't see anything wrong with retconning existing characters, who, especially ones like that were coded gay in the first place. You know, like Thelma. Thelma was... It's basically been a joke for decades that Thelma is sort of like, you know, in the closet. Right? This has been a thing forever. I mean, Scooby-Doo is kind of coded like that in the first place. If you look at what Scooby-Doo, it's two stoners, a guy who's obviously like a fucking, you know, Scooby-Doo has been like a counterculture thing, you know, like Shaggy is like obviously on drugs. He's like incredibly high. He's eating dog treats, for fuck's sake. He's so high. Right? And then you have Thelma, who was obviously gay of some kind, right? And then, you know, Fred and Daphne are there to be the straight couple. They're the ones that, you know, were obviously into each other and have been for like the since the beginning of the goddamn series, you know. But they're the cis white straight couple in order to make it palatable for network TV, you know. I don't know, man. It's like, you know, it's making this character gay is sort of like a no-brainer. It's like the least controversial thing I can think of, because it was like she's always been a gay icon. You know, it's sort of like different. Like, you know, remember when fucking J.K. Rowling made Dumbledore gay and everybody went crazy? Like, why is he gay? And it's like, well, I can see that. I can see why somebody might not like that, because there were no... And the reason why is because in the Harry Potter books, there's no indication at all that Dumbledore's gay. Like, there was no signs. He didn't dress any particular way. He didn't say anything. He didn't have, like, a live-in male companion. You know what I mean? That he wasn't coded gay, right, at all. So it sort of felt like it came out of left field. You know, that's the first thing. But the thing with this character in Scooby-Doo, Thelma, she was coded gay, like, since the beginning, for fuck's sake, right? I mean, so what's the problem? It's like, obviously, if one of the five, since, you know, it is in Gen Z, right, you would say Scooby-Doo is a Gen Z cartoon. It came out in 1974. That's Generation Z, right? Or, sorry, Generation X is what I meant to say, right? So, if 1 in 5 people of Generation X are gay, then one of the 5 Scooby-Doo kids should be gay. Well, which one is it going to be? It's going to be the one that's obviously been coded gay. I don't know. It seems like the most incontroversial thing to me ever. And it just kind of goes to show it's like conservatives and Christians and MAGA people will just clutch their pearls and fill their diapers over the stupidest fucking shit. You know. Stupidest fucking shit ever. I don't know, folks. It's all fucking dumb. Anybody who doesn't think weed should be legal should obviously smoke more. You should smoke weed and you should watch Scooby-Doo and see how good it is. I don't know, folks. It's fucking dumb. I gotta get out of here. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't, please like and subscribe and all that stuff. If you like what I do and you want to see more of my, you know, let me just open up my social media stuff here. Let's see that. Give me a second, folks. Oh, TSY. There we go. So I have a web gallery here at DeviantArt. Let me put that down in the thing. Let me just open up the rest of this stuff here really fast before we move on. UCD videos. Okay, let me just go to my shop. So if you like my artwork and you want to see more of it, please check me out here. I have a gallery up on DeviantArt that you can go and look at the rest of my artwork. I'll put this down in the chat for you guys. There you go. That's my artwork. You can see I post stuff here all the time, right? If you want to give me some money, I have a SD shop where I post prints and stuff like that and comic books. These are hand-stained prints. This is a very popular one. This is like from Lovecraft. These are all physical prints that I stain by hand, and they all come out different stuff like that. So please, if you want to give me, if you like what I do and you want to make me some money, please consider buying something. I have a web comic if you want to read it. Working on another page as we speak. It has ninjas. It has talking ducks. It's got people getting kicked in the face, that kind of thing. Hawanja.com. Fun for the whole stupid family. And I have another YouTube video where I basically play with toys and look at video games and stuff. That's UCD videos. Please check me out there. Anyway, guys, really appreciate you all joining. And I'm going to be out next week and the week after. So no streams on Saturday for 2 weeks. But I'm going to do some in the middle of the week in order to make up for these. Next week I'm going to be at Monsterpalooza in Burbank. So any of you in Burbank, California, if you want to come visit me, I'll be having a table there where I'll be selling my prints and stuff. So Monsterpalooza is awesome. It's like one of the best cons like ever. It's all Halloween and monster and makeup, and you know, Stan Winston Studios has a booth there, shit like that. It's really, really cool. And then they have a costume contest every year at like Monsterpalooza, and the costumes are like off the hook because there's like actual Hollywood like professionals and stuff doing the makeup, and they give like prizes with like thousands of dollars in these costume contests. Like they're seriously no joke. So yeah, definitely if you get a chance, if you live in Southern California and you want to meet me in real life, I will be Monsterpalooza in Burbank this next week. It's the 14th and 15th of October. And then I'm going to be out the week after that for personal reasons. So no streams on Saturday for 2 weeks. But I'm going to do one this Wednesday, this next coming Wednesday. And then I'll probably do another one the next Wednesday after that in order to make up for that. So anyway, guys, really appreciate you all. Thank you all so much. And I am out of here.